Hey, Wemberg World Entertainment, and we've made it to episode 8 of Strange New Worlds. You know what that means? It means there's only 2 episodes left. Thank God. And this episode, if we thought we saw the worst episodes by now, no we haven't, because this is right up there. And I mean right up there. This is the episode we've been seeing images for quite a while now, and they've been highlighting. It's the episode where half the crew get turned into Vulcans. And it's not the case of they just put on prosthetics or something. They are fully Vulcan, to the point that they keep referring to Spock as only half Vulcan. So they keep referring to themselves, which is also what the episode is called, 4.5 Vulcans. Yeah. Kirk is back in this episode again. So is Pike's girlfriend, who is also a captain and yet never seems to actually be on her own ship. This episode is horrendously stupid and truly shows you they have no understanding of anything Star Trek. We've said this a lot, how they just don't understand how this works and that works and that worked and how one of them work and all that stuff. This is no different, because now we clearly see they don't even know how Vulcans work, because they just turned them into Vulcans and they're just straight away is like, oh, everything is illogical. I feel so much smarter and blah blah blah. And it's like, that's not how Vulcans actually work. Vulcans actually have a lot of emotions. In fact, their emotions are incredibly difficult to control. So when you're seeing Vulcans like Spock and stuff, you have to understand that in their past, they were actually a savage race. And it took decades upon decades to master the control of emotions. So if you're pumped with something that just instantly turns you into a Vulcan, you should be struggling to contain your human emotions. And that's non-existent in this. It's ridiculous. And they set something up as well in this episode that then just gets completely ignored. And it was like, wait a minute, what? So there's meant to be 5 of them that get, or was it 4? No, yeah, 5 were meant to be turned into Vulcans. Why? Well, shore leave is coming up, but they get an emergency distress call. Now, this part doesn't quite make sense, because they get a distress call from a planet that, or is it, did they say someone? Either way, there's a planet that's pre-warp, that still use nuclear power plants, and one of the plants that basically services the whole world is about to go nuclear. Basically, it's going to collapse and destroy the world. But because they're Starfleet and stuff like that, they obviously can't interfere because of the Prime Directive. The Vulcans, however, did interfere at some stage, which also goes against their Prime Directive, but also not. Which is what Spock says, but never actually elaborate on what exactly he means. So they would have to go down as Vulcans, but you couldn't just put on prosthetics, because they can sense if you're actual Vulcan, which means they have to get turned into actual Vulcans. How does that work? Well, it's a throwback to season 2. I'm pretty sure it was in season 2 when Spock became human. The serum they came up with to reverse that, they used that to change people into Vulcans. And it was meant to be Pike, Chapel, Uhura, Na'an, and whatever her name is. Again, don't know the actress' name, don't know the character's name. You all know who I'm going to say. Goes to Christmas present in Scrooge, her. But whatever species she is, it doesn't work for her. And she makes a joke about LSD. That LSD didn't work for her in the 1960s, the 1990s, and 11 days ago, is what she says. So, yeah. But it works for the others. So that's where they're like, well, we still need one more, so Spock. And that's when they start saying, but he's only half Vulcan, blah blah blah, and they keep referencing that. It's stupid. So is the performances, because Pike is Anson Mount basically his portrayal of a Vulcan is this weird, over the top, very shouty version. Uhura is like they all become robots. And I've even said this about Spock's portrayal in this show, is he speaks and moves like a robot for some reason, and they do the same thing, even more so though, especially Pike. Like, he won't even turn his head, he turns his whole body. It's like he's Batman all of a sudden. But when they come back, they go down, they fix it within a few seconds, and they come back up, and they give them the injections back, and it doesn't work. By the way, I should have said straight away, this episode has Patton Oswalt in it as a Vulcan who's desperate to be human. We'll get to it. Oh, trust me, we'll get to it. But because the serum didn't work and changed them back, they made an agreement. They want to remain Vulcan because they're getting so much more done. Pike changes the schedule of the ship to be basically you're on shift every 45 or 47 minutes. So basically you go off, you've like 47 minutes before you're on your next shift and stuff like that. It's weird. He got rid of chairs and stuff like that. And Chapel was meant to kind of try and figure out how to reverse some things, and she was meant to do just a one experiment, and she ended up doing 7. And she becomes so obsessed with science and stuff like that she's basically, yeah, I'm gonna break up with my boyfriend. She contacts him and breaks up with him, but basically breaks up with Spock, but not as a couple, as in friends, and says she's gonna do it with all of her friends because she's wasting so much time socializing. Uhura, who is seemingly dating or starting to date the helmsperson brother, doesn't particularly like his attitude, so we don't see it happening, but we're told later, because he's acting weird, she mind melded with him to make the parts she does like stand out more. And Na'an goes war mad, like really weird. She wants to get more weapons on the ship, she wants to make people arm themselves, and she wants to start a war. Yeah. Now here's the thing. She's in a Jeffries tube and comes out of the Jeffries tube, and Pike is there. Now remember, they're still Vulcans at this time. And he says, is there something wrong with the Jeffries tube? And she says, yes, there is. There's not enough security and weapons on the ship and blah blah blah. He says this thing, now the way it's all worded, I can't remember exactly, but he says something about he knows something that he can't discuss, but it's related to something else that he also can't discuss that would lead to something else that he can't discuss. Do you get that? Okay. And this is not word for word because it's weird, but she repeats all of that type of stuff back to him with just adding into I also and blah 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 and can't discuss. And then they said, well, maybe we should say something at the same time, and they went Romulans. And then she said, does your Romulans include time travel? And he leans forward and goes, I can't discuss. And they agreed to walk away. So for some reason they brought up something about Romulans and time travel. It's never brought up again. Never in the episode is it brought up again. But of course they have to come up with an idea of how the hell are they going to convince them to give up the Vulcan way of life. While all this is happening, all weird shit is happening, including one of the admirals is coming on board, which is a Vulcan admiral, because Pike's girlfriend is... We find out that yes, she's still a captain, but she's not back on her ship apparently because she's not ready. This is her evaluation basically to say she's ready, but Pike interjects and basically said she's not ready, blah blah blah, because it's the Vulcan, the honesty, and she loses it with the two of them, and she ends up, by the end, she gets promoted to admiral of fleet something or another, I can't remember, because of the honesty, which was weird. But it was just like, why is she on the Enterprise again? Like, why is this captain never on her own ship and all this weird crap? But that's why she's there. Kirk shows up because he was in the area, apparently, whatever. Him and Scotty team up to try and figure out what's going on with Na'an, and they basically have to knock her out. When they eventually get all the rest of them to come back to being human, which I will get to all of that because that's all related to Patton Oswalt. But that goes to another thing, which is why I'll speak about all his shit in one go. But Na'an is the only one who's refused to give up being a Vulcan. And then we see her, and she's human, but it's in a mind meld with Spock. And the way he convinces her is she's trying to fight him in the mind meld, except they start, yeah, you guessed it already, dancing again. And that's what convinces her to change me back, is they dance. And it's like, my God. By the way, silly music is playing throughout this whole episode. And I don't mean like just weird, I mean like actual comedy, silly music, like do type of stuff. That's playing throughout the entire episode. Except for like the weird kind of rock song that plays when they're walking down the corridor after they first get changed to Vulcans, but whatever. But how do they convince them to get changed back? Well, bring in Patton Oswalt, who's a Vulcan in this. They say you have to get in touch with your Katra, I think they said. So, number one says, like, she knows a guy, but it's her ex. And she was acting squirrely about not wanting to go on shore leave and stuff earlier, but it turns out she gets weird around it. I think it's a joke that's been written into the episode because it's the case of, do we honestly believe someone like Patton Oswalt could ever get someone like Rebecca Romaine? I think that's what the joke is meant to be, because she turns to jelly basically around him. And he comes on board. She's instantly kind of, but then tries to sway the conversation back to what they need by saying her and Spock are married. You have to get, oh, by the way, Patton Oswalt's Vulcan name is Doug. Yes. Not like Dugalakushaka or some crap. Doug. Spock even says that's a very unusual Vulcan name, and he says, my parents were obsessed with human culture. They named me Doug. My sister works for whatever admiral is named Sue, and you might have heard of my cousin Pete. That's like, what? Not to mention, if it's his parents who were obsessed with human, why would his cousin be named Pete? Whatever. But yeah, he's a Vulcan named Doug. But they say they have kids and blah blah blah, and Spock spills drink on her to get her away. And Spock basically says to him, hey look, if you help us out, I'll let you know what it's like to be human. And he's all pumped for that, so he obviously does help. And then by the end, oh my good God, I can't believe I'm saying this, we go to the credits, right? Like nothing else happens, everything else we covered. There is a post-credit scene this episode, and it's Spock and Doug. Spock teaching him all these things such as high fives, down lows and you're too slow, pull my finger. And it's been all cut into different ways. He's like, pull my finger, and he's like, this finger, and he's like, and then he pulls it, and then Spock says, flatulence. And he's like, shocked. And it goes on and on and on like this for like a good 2 to 3 minutes. And by the end of it, and the big running joke is he's trying to get Doug to be able to say it's illogical, and he can't say it's. And then when he finally manages to say it, he can't say I've. He says I have. It's, yeah, it's not funny, it's annoying and stupid. And then they leave in that he gets kind of frustrated, and he says he wins at the whole down low, and rather than saying you're too slow, he says victory is mine, I'm fully human, although I'm not, I'm Vulcan, but I'm incredibly excited right now. And you're like, what is happening? And then he gets to one point, and the joke is he can't get it. I think it's he can't say Ives after he says it's, and he walks out. They're like in the 10-4 type area, and we're stuck on Spock, but we're watching him behind him walk all the way out and slowly out the door. And once Spock just breaks out pissing himself laughing, and it's like they forgot to say cut, or they just left it in as a blooper. It was the bizarrest ending, and it was like, what the hell did I just watch? And that is the entire episode was, what the hell did I just watch? Why are they making episodes like this? Why are they doing this? It's horrible. It's not Star Trek. It'll never be Star Trek. It's god awful. It shows their lack of understanding of everything regarding Star Trek, the species, all the things that go on. It was ridiculous. And the fact that this Romulan space or time travel thing got mentioned once, very briefly, and never ever mentioned again, it was like, okay, like, why did we not see Pike and not on back human speaking to each other and saying like, hey, that thing about Romulan? No, it's never brought up again. It was just like, this is weird. Absolutely horrendous episode again, and we've got 2 left. Can't wait to see what kind of colossal disasters they're going to be. But I'm telling you now, number one, if this was on a network rather than the streaming service, number one, it would not have got past the first season. But number two, by this episode, this thing would be cancelled. They would absolutely cancel this thing. It's horrendous. I don't know how they get away with making this garbage, but yeah, so there's the review for episode 8. So we've only 2 more to go. Thank God. And then it'll be Starfleet Academy, won't it? Oh God. Anyway, if you've seen it, let us know what you think of it. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. Cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.